As I said earlier, what I would do to repair the break in the cabinet of the Motorola is to use a piece of sheet glass, which you see here. It's not special glass, it's just regular sheet glass, and it has the thickness of, I would say, 1.5 millimeters, maybe 2. And the goal of using this glass is, if you take a look inside the cabinet, you see that along the edge here of the cabinet there is some space left for the sheet glass to be placed. So the goal is really to insert the sheet glass like this into the space in such a way that it covers up the break in the chassis here. And what I'm going to do is that when the glass is properly aligned like this, is make a mark with a alcohol pen along the glass. Right there. I leave about 5 mil on top of the glass to be able to hold it later on. There you go. So where I drew the blue line will be, well, I will make a cut where you see the blue line, which I drew with the alcohol pen. And when I'm done and I've cut this piece of the glass, I'll cut a second piece just like it, the same height and the same width. And I might even shorten it up a little bit, because as you can see it's a bit too long. So I'll shorten it up by, I'd say, 1 centimeter, maybe a bit more. So hang on. What you need to do to cut a piece of glass, as you can see here, is you need obviously a glass cutter. Now this is just a standard glass cutter you can find in any home improvement center, in a do-it-yourself shop. It costs, if I remember correctly, €2, which would translate to about $2.50. So it's not really an expensive tool. Now the way to go about it is that you take a ruler like this, for example, you place it along the line you drew, like that. And you press down the cutter and go over the glass a few times. And then, normally speaking, if you're lucky, it should break along the line. But as you can see, it's not as evident as that, so let's do it again. So you press down the cutter on the glass and you yeah, there you go. I think. Hang on. I need a slightly harder implement. That didn't go too well. Well, obviously the cut wasn't deep enough in this part, so no problem. There you go. That's much better. So that's one part. Now I draw a piece. I draw over the glass with the pen. Draw a line. Just for certainty. Actually, I don't really need that line, but at least then I see where I'm cutting. So what I do now is I press down the knife firmly and that should do it. Okay. Not as easy as it looks, you know. Glass is much more resistant to cutting. Also, you should be aware that when you cut glass, there are a lot of tiny little splinters lying about, and you should be careful about those, because these little splinters, if you're not careful, they will cut right into your flesh and stay embedded like shards. That's a lot better. You know, and that glass can do harm, so you should be careful when you handle glass. At least you should wear a pair of glasses, protective glasses, that is. So that the pieces of glass don't fly into your face. There you go. Okay, so I have two pieces of glass. They are not exactly the same shape and all, but it doesn't really matter, because, as I'll show you, when you take the cabinet and you picture the break, which you see here, the pieces of glass should in effect just be used as barriers which hold in the epoxy. So this piece is reasonable. I will have to make it a little bit shorter, and then this piece, the second one, will go on top like this. So what I am going to try to do is to press those two pieces of glass once I've coated them with something which doesn't stick to epoxy, and I'm going to press them down like this and then drip in ready mixed epoxy in between the two plates and leave them like that until the epoxy dries. Once the epoxy is cured, I will just take away the two pieces of glass, and hopefully we will be left with a smooth replacement for the part which is gone from the cabinet. So that is the plan. Whether it will succeed or not largely depends on how well the epoxy will stick to this part of the cabinet, and hopefully won't stick to the glass. So that's it. Stay tuned. I'll be back once I've prepped this area with the glass plate and I've poured in the epoxy, and I'll show you the result of my work.